Hey guys, tonight we're sneaking into the dark, dangerous, and utterly unglamorous world of medieval assassins. These shadowy figures slither through castle corridors or murky alleys to rewrite history with a dagger and a whisper. Hollywood paints them as suave, badass types. But the truth? Being an assassin back then was an absolute disaster. Now, before you kick back and get cozy, hit that like button and subscribe if you're actually enjoying this grim ride. Oh, and by the way, drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Always fun to see who's joining me on this global jaunt. Now, dim the lights, turn on the fan for that soft hum, and let's dive into tonight's journey. You don't choose to be an assassin. Nobody wakes up one morning, hears the rooster crow, and thinks, "Today I'll grab a dagger, sneak past the city gates, and slit some noble's throat for a few coins." But life's a bitter beast, and it shoves you into this trade like a dice roll, landing in the darkest corner of a game you never wanted to play. Picture yourself standing there, clothes tattered, stomach growling like a broken cart engine. Maybe you were a farmer, breaking your back-tilling fields only to see your crops snatched by taxes. Or a soldier dreaming of battlefield glory, only to be cast aside after a crushing defeat, left with a dented breastplate and shattered pride. Life's chewed you up like stale bread, spat you out with empty hands and dead eyes. No home, no family, frankly, no nothing. Society doesn't even glance your way, like you're a filler episode nobody bothers to watch on Netflix. But that very invisibility? That's the talent that gets you picked to become a medieval assassin. You're sitting in a grimy tavern where the stench of sour ale and sweat blends into a perfume of failure. The candlelight flickers, casting shadows on warped faces, a cheating horse trader, a barmaid with a tired smile, and then him. A stranger slinks in, cloak frayed at the shoulders, eyes darting like a rat in a granary. He slides a tiny coin pouch across the table, the clink of coins mocking you like fate's snicker. "A simple job," he whispers, voice sweet as rancid honey. "One cut, one name, and you'll have enough to escape this hellhole." You glance at the pouch, then at the dagger in your hand, and wonder, is this a way out, or just another trap? But you've got no options left. Family, if you ever had one, is gone, starved, sick, or simply ditched you like a worn-out shoe. No land, no trade, not even a goat to call your own. Medieval society doesn't have charities or career counselors. Fall to the bottom, and you stay there, unless you're willing to do the things decent folk only whisper about in the dark. So you nod, the pouch heavy in your hand, like a curse made solid. The target's name, a count or bishop or some such, burns into your mind, but one thing's clear. Glory? Nope. Days off. Dream on. All you've got is a life of hiding in haystacks, praying the rats don't nibble your toes and squeal. Think being an assassin gives you power? Ha, big mistake. You're no knight in shining armor, galloping on a white steed to save a princess. You're a faint ink smudge in the history books, and that page is already torn, ready to blow away in the wind. No one's building statues of you, no one's spinning tales of your deeds by the hearth. If you're lucky, you're a whispered rumor in a tavern. That weird cloaked guy who vanished before anyone caught his face. If you're not, your name's carved on a wooden plank dangling from the gallows, labeled murderer for the village to curse. Your first night after taking the job, you're curled up in an abandoned stable, the reek of manure and moldy straw choking your nose. You try to sleep, but your eyes are glued to the ceiling, where the wooden slats curve like the Grim Reaper's grin. Ever wonder how you sleep knowing you're someone's nightmare? You don't? You just lie there, heart pounding like war drums, haunted by blood not yet spilled, but already staining your mind. The target's face, someone you've never met, floats in your head, and you wonder, Do they have a family? Do they sense death creeping? Then you shove it aside, because thinking too much makes your hand shake when you grip the dagger. But deep down, you know, every cut costs a piece of your soul, like a coin dropped into a well, gone forever. Your life's now a string of fleeting moments. You drift from village to village, never lingering long, because suspicious glares cut sharper than any blade. You learn to walk without sound, to bow your head to avoid eyes, to lie as smoothly as a requiem. "I'm a roofer," you mutter when questioned, but the sweat on your brow betrays you. No friends, because friends ask questions. No lovers, because who wants to cuddle a guy who sleeps with a dagger under the pillow? It's just you, the blade, and a coin pouch that's getting lighter, because every coin comes with a price. A life, your conscience, or both. The assassin's gig has no labor contract, no holidays, no pension. You work because you must, because hunger's a harsher boss than any noble. But don't kid yourself. You're not free. You're chained to this life by clients, by blood, by choices you barely remember making. Each job tightens the noose around your neck, and you know sooner or later it'll choke you. You used to dream of another life, a small plot of land, a roof, someone waiting by the fire. But that dream's long dead, buried under the haystack you hid in last night. And then, some nights, you ask, why? Why not toss the dagger, run, start over? But you know the answer. Run where? Do what? A guy like you, hands stained with blood and a past heavy as lead, has no place in the world of decent folk. You stepped into the dark, and the dark doesn't let go. It clings like ink on paper, like sin on a soul. You're no knight, no hero. You're a tool, a shadow, a faint ink smudge in history's torn pages, ready to be forgotten. But don't worry, your story doesn't end here. You've taken the job, gripped the dagger, stepped onto a path with no return. Now you need to learn to survive, not with skill, not with luck, but with near deaths and mistakes carved into your flesh. The assassin's trade has no schools, no teachers, just blood-soaked lessons you learn or die trying. Wipe the blade, take a deep breath, and brace yourself, because the road ahead is darker than a moonless night. Think gripping a dagger makes you an assassin? How naive. This trade doesn't teach through books or advice, but through falls from castle walls, near misses with guard dogs, or grabbing the wrong poisoned cup. Keep walking, because the school of assassins awaits, and it doesn't forgive the slow. Think you'll join a secret dojo where a silver-bearded master teaches you to wield a dagger like it's ballet? Ha! Forget it, like you'd forget a sweet dream during a fever. No assassin academy, no masters, no manuals. You'll learn by nearly dying, each survival a lesson etched into your skin, each scar a blood-signed diploma. Picture you, a deserter or a broke farmer, standing before a city gate at midnight, hands shaking around a rusty dagger, trying to sneak through without a sound. One loose pebble, one stifled cough, and a guard spear carves your name into the wall, not the heroic kind, but the idiot died here kind. Go back to your first job. You take your first contract, a tiny coin pouch clinking like fate's mocking chuckle. The target's a noble, holed up in a castle crawling with guards and hounds. You think it's easy as eating bread, slip in, stab, slip out. But as you climb the castle wall, your tattered cloak snags on a stone, yanking you down like a sack of potatoes. The noise echoes, dogs bark like mad, and you barely roll into a bush, heart pounding like war drums. Guards pass, their torches grazing your face, close enough to smell the burning oil. You hold your breath, praying you don't sneeze, because one achoo makes you dog food. Luck holds, they move on, but you lie there, trembling. Learning lesson 1. Stealth isn't a skill, it's survival instinct. You learn by failing, and failing hurts, sometimes literally. Your second try You attempt a castle window, thinking you're nimble as a cat. But it leads to the laundry room where a maid's soaking clothes. She screams, hurls a bucket of soapy water in your face, and you bolt, soaked, eyes stinging, guards chasing like angry bees. You hide in a wine barrel, liquid seeping into your nose, swearing to check windows next time. The scar on your hand from tripping over a bucket is proof of your stupidity, but also a lesson. Never assume it'll be easy. You learn to kill not in classrooms, but in moments when death looms behind you, whispering in your ear. Your first kill, your hand shakes like autumn leaves. The target's a horse trader in a dark alley. But the dagger slips, only tearing his coat, and he screams like a gutted pig. You wrestle, fall in the mud, face smeared, and somehow stab him. Not clean, not professional, just dumb luck. You run, blood on your hands, and that night you learn lesson 2. Killing's not hard, surviving it is. The scar on your shoulder from his desperate counterswipe reminds you every kill's a gamble with death. You learn from others, but not by sitting at their feet. You eavesdrop in taverns, hearing a drunk brag about nearly dying when a wet rope slipped on a castle gate. You curse his idiocy, but note, check the rope. Another time, you see a thief caught by hounds because he carried meat in his bag. The smell betrayed him. Lesson learned. No food on a job. These aren't shared out of kindness. They're from others' stupidity, and you're just smart enough not to repeat it. But don't get cocky. Every time you think you're good, life throws a new test, like when you nearly died grabbing the wrong poisoned cup at a feast. You meant to spike the target's wine, but your trembling hand almost made you the victim. Lesson? Don't work hungry or half blind. You learn to read a castle like a tattered book. You memorize stairs, creaky doors, the wheeze of an asthmatic guard. Once, you were nearly caught because you didn't know the back gate had an iron bolt. You ran, arrows whizzing past your ear, hiding in a sewer, filthy water up to your neck. The scar on your leg from scraping a rock in the drain is a reminder. Always map the place in your head. You learn disguise, but not the fancy cloak kind. You wear an oversized monk's robe, muttering prayers to fool a servant, but sweat on your brow makes you look like you just robbed the church. You learn because you must, because each mistake is a step closer to the gallows. These lessons have no graduation, no medals. Your diploma? A body crisscrossed with scars, each one a near death, each one a story you'd rather not tell. The scar on your hand from a fall, on your shoulder from a blade, on your leg from the sewer, they're your credentials, signed in blood. But more than that, your diploma is the heavy gut feeling, like a sad tune on a crackly radio, that one wrong step turns you to dust. You never relax, never gloat. Each survival's just a temporary pass to the next near death. You're not an assassin because you're good. You're an assassin because you're not dead yet. Tonight, you sit in an abandoned stable, wiping a rusty dagger under moonlight. You've learned enough to survive, just enough. You know how to slip through gates, land a stab, run before the blood dries. But you also know this trade doesn't forgive. Each job's a new test, and you're not sure you'll pass. You trace your scars, a map of a life you didn't choose, and wonder, how long until your final mistake? But don't worry, the story's not over. You've learned to kill, but now you must learn to live with your clients. Those who promise gold but stab you faster than you stab your targets. Stand up, hide the dagger, and get ready, because clients are waiting. And they're more dangerous than a castle full of guards. Think you're clever with scars telling tales of survival? How naive. Your clients, those whispering target names in taverns, aren't friends. They paint dreams of gold, but pay with a blade in your back, and you're about to learn the costliest lesson. Trusting a client is the fastest road to the grave. Think clients are generous lords, sliding bags of gold across tavern tables like in a cowboy flick. Wake up. Your clients, those hiring you to kill, are vipers, dangling dreams of riches, but settling scores with a dagger in your spine. Picture you, a rookie assassin, risking it all to slit a count's throat in the dark, heart pounding like war drums, only to find your clients vanished like smoke, leaving you with a bounty on your head and a pouch as empty as a politician's promise. They purr, half now, half later, voice sweet as spoiled honey, but later means some goon stalking you in an alley. You wise up, keeping a letter spilling their sins as your ace in the hole, but don't get smug. Trusting a client is a one-way ticket to the dirt. Go back to your first betrayal. You take your first job, a tiny coin pouch clinking like fate's snicker. The client, a frayed, cloaked man with eyes like a rat in a granary, promises full payment after you handle a greedy bishop. You sneak into the castle, scale walls, dodge hounds, and land a messy stab, blood all over your hands. You escape, heart ready to burst, hiding in a pigsty, the stench a reminder of this wretched trade. The next night, you hit the meeting spot, a dark tavern corner, but the client's gone. Instead, guards patrol, swords drawn, like the whole city knows your deed. The second half of the payment vanished with the client like a song cut off on a busted radio. You learn lesson 1. Clients don't pay to keep you alive. You're a tool, like a broken shovel in a shed, used and tossed. The second time, you're smarter. You demand more up front, keep a handwritten letter detailing the client's crimes, who's the target, why, and the dirty secrets they spilled when drunk. You tuck it in your cloak, an ace to threaten that if they betray you, their wife gets it, or worse, the village priest. But even then, you're not safe. Once you finish a job, a horse trader dead in an alley, and go for the payout. The client, a fat merchant, grins, slides the pouch across, but as you leave, 2 bruisers block the street, knives gleaming. Boss says no witnesses, one growls. You run, slip in mud, and escape through a sewer, filth up to your neck. Lesson? The pouch is bait, and you're the fish. You start doubting everything. Every promise is a trap, every smile a hidden blade. You learn to read clients like a tattered book. A noble talks too much? He's scared you know too much, and scared men are dangerous. A merchant pays too fast? He's rushing because guards are tipped off. Once, a hooded client, voice like a night breeze, offered a fat gold pouch. You smelled a trap. You agreed, but left a fake letter in the tavern, claiming he hired a killer. By morning, he's nabbed by guards, and you're long gone. The letter, your ace, is your only weapon sharper than a dagger, but it reminds you, every job's a game, and the house always cheats. You learn to demand payment up front, but even that's no picnic. Once you forced a fur trader client to pay full before you moved. He handed over a heavy pouch, but when you checked, half was pebbles. You hunted him, but he'd vanished, leaving a message with the barkeep. Tell the assassin to shut up or he's dead. You grit your teeth, learning another lesson. Check the pouch before you walk away. But don't think you can sue. This trade has no courts, no contracts. Want justice? Good luck. Your only court is the gallows, with you as the star. Clients don't just cheat you out of coin, they cheat you out of life. Once, you took a job to kill a count, thinking it a juicy deal. You slipped past guards, did the deed. But at the rendezvous, no client, just a squad of guards, swords gleaming. The job was a setup, the count's alive, and you're bait for him to parade as a caught assassin. You run, arrows whistling, hiding in a forest, starving for 3 days. The scar on your arm from a grazing arrow is a reminder. Clients don't want you to succeed. They want you gone, job done or not. You learn to live with betrayal, like chronic pain. You never trust a promise, never turn your back on a client, Never think the pouch is your reward. Every coin's a curse, every job a noose tightening. You keep the letter, demand up front, but deep down, you know, there's no safety here. Clients are vipers, and you're a rat in their den. You once dreamed of a final job, enough to quit. But that dream's smoke, because clients don't pay for your happy ending. They pay for your silence, preferably in death. Tonight you sit in a tavern corner, candlelight flickering like death's smirk. The latest job's pouch is pathetically light, and you know the client's scheming. You tuck the incriminating letter in your cloak, hand on your dagger, wondering, how will they screw you this time? But the story's not done. You've learned to survive, to distrust, but now you must deal with shoddy tools, a rusty dagger, a poorly knotted rope, and things less reliable than a client's word. Stand up, check the blade, and brace yourself, because this trade has more dirty tricks waiting. Think clients are your worst nightmare? Not yet. Your tools, the borrowed dagger, the rope, the homemade poison, betray you faster than any client. Wipe the blade, because life's about to teach you a new lesson. Surviving with trash in your hands. Think being an assassin means you're kitted out like a fairy tale knight with gleaming armor, silver arrows, or a sword engraved with your name in gold? Ha, snap out of it, like waking from a cheap ale-bender. Your tools are garbage, a dagger stolen from a drunk guard, poison brewed from weeds behind a pigsty, and a rope you can't knot right. You turn rusty nails into weapons, torn rags into bindings, because when death's lurking in the alley, even a spoon's your pal. You wrap the dagger in oiled cloth, praying it doesn't rust before it cuts a throat. But deep down, you know, your weapon isn't fine steel. It's a reminder you're one dull blade from hell. Picture you in an alley at midnight, fog coiling like a shroud. In your hands a dagger borrowed from a passed-out guard by the tavern. The blade's dull, warped like a loan shark's grin, but it's all you've got between you and death. You check it, spot a new rust patch, and curse, not because the dagger's junk, but because you have to trust it. You wrap it in scavenged oiled rags, praying for no rain, because a rustier blade means a slower stab, and slow means a one-way trip to the grave. Your gear isn't treasure. It's trash you scrounge, like a beggar rifling bins for moldy bread. Besides the dagger, you've got a rope, a gift from a horse trader you killed last week. It's frayed, like a witch's hair in a story, and you knot it wrong every time, like it's fighting you. Once you tried using it to scale a castle wall, but the knot slipped, and you crashed into the mud, nearly breaking your neck. What did you learn? Knot it again, check it, and swear, because the rope's no ally, just a lazy traitor. Then there's poison, your elegant weapon, brewed from weeds and wishful thinking. You gather roots, odd leaves, and moldy mushrooms from behind the pigsty, cooking them in a pot borrowed from a soup-selling granny. The result? A sludgy mess smelling like shattered dreams that might kill or just make someone puke and suspect the soup. Once you slipped poison into a merchant's wine, but he just grimaced, ordered more bread, and lived a decade longer. Lesson? Poison's unreliable, and you're no alchemist, just a desperate guy with a lethal stew. You stash the vial in your pouch, praying it doesn't leak, because if it seeps through your cloak, you're the first corpse. You get creative with junk because it's all you've got. A rusty nail from the market? Grind it on a stone, and it's a tiny blade, good enough for leather armor. A scrap of old cloak? Tear it into bindings to gag a guard before he screams. Once you even used a wooden spoon, your only possession, to knock out a drunk snitch about to rat you to the guards. You smirk, thinking death itself must be applauding, because when hell calls, even a spoon's your buddy. But don't get proud. Your tools are a reminder you're no knight, just a beggar fighting with garbage. You learn to live with your tools' betrayal. The dagger dulls mid-job, like a lover ditching you in a storm. Once, you stabbed a target, but the blade caught in his armor, and you wrestled, blood everywhere, as he screamed like a slaughtered pig. You escaped, but the scar on your hand, from the blade slipping, is a warning. Always check the edge. The rope's no better. Once you tied up a fur trader, but the knot slipped, and he nearly choked you. You learn to re-knot, but every time you hold it, you curse it like a friend you'll never trust. Poison's a nightmare of its own. You try brewing it, but with no recipe, no measures, just gut instinct and prayers. Once you overdid it in a count's soup, and he didn't die, just vomited across the feast, making the castle suspicious. You ran, hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest, and learned, less poison or none at all. But don't dream of fancy gear. No crossbows, no silver swords, no armor. You've got a rusty dagger, an old rope, and bad poison. Reminders this isn't adventure. It's survival. You keep your tools close, not out of love, but because they're your lifeline. The daggers in your cloak, the ropes around your waist, the poisons in a sealed pouch. You check them nightly, like a sailor checking sails before a storm. Once you forgot to wrap the dagger, and rain rusted it more. You sharpened it on a rock, hands bleeding, cursing, not for the pain, but because a dull blade invites death. You learn to care for your trash because in this trade, trash is all you've got. Tonight, you sit in an abandoned stable, moonlight glinting through wooden slats like a sneer. You check the dagger, still rusty, but sharp enough to kill. The rope, still frayed, but strong enough to bind. The poison, still foul, but maybe usable. You smirk, thinking your gear's like your life. Shoddy, but not broken yet. But don't get cocky. Your tools only keep you alive to face the next challenge. Your targets, powerful men guarded tighter than a bank vault, with soldiers, walls, and hounds. Stand up, hide the dagger, and get ready, because this trade doesn't rest, and your target's waiting ahead. Think your shoddy tools are your biggest problem? Not yet. Your targets, nobles, bishops, dukes, are guarded like bank vaults, with soldiers swarming like bees and walls towering high. Sharpen the dagger, because the road ahead's thornier than the haystack you hid in last night. Think being an assassin means sneaking into a wooden shack, stabbing a sleeping turnip seller, and slipping away with a full pouch? Ha! Wake up, like snapping out of a night listening to ghost stories on the radio. Your targets are power itself, guarded tighter than a bank vault, living in sky-high castles with soldiers thick as flies and spies from the scullery maid to the cook. You're not hired to kill Joe the vegetable guy. Your targets are bishops, dukes, even royals, where one wrong sneeze gets the whole city hunting you. Getting to them takes weeks of disguise, bribes, and a sprinkle of divine luck, like finding a coin in a haystack. You eavesdrop at markets, sketch castle layouts in your head, because one misstep makes you a blood mural on the city gate, captioned, "Dumb Assassin." Picture you in the dark, fog wrapping you like a shroud, staring up at a castle looming like death's dare. Your target's a bishop, a fat guy in silk robes, rings big as walnuts. Think you can slip in, stab, and vanish? Big mistake. His castle's a fortress, stone walls 3 stories high, iron gates heavy as his greed, and a moat of stinking water, maybe with crocodiles if you're lucky. Guards man every corner, swords ready, eyes sharp as hawks. The floor-scrubbing page, the meat-chopping cook, even the laundry girl, they're all eyes, ready to whisper to the boss if you falter. You're not facing one man, you're facing a system like trying to crack a bank vault with a wooden spoon. To get close, you need disguise, and not the fairy tale cloak kind. You wear an oversized monk's robe, muttering prayers like you just escaped church, but sweat on your brow betrays you. A week earlier, you loitered at the market, posing as a firewood peddler, overhearing horse traders mention the castle's back gate opens at dawn for bread deliveries. You sketch a mental map: 32 stairs, 2 guards, 1 hound. You bribe a cart driver with your last coin to leave the stable door cracked for your escape. Every detail's a thread keeping you alive, but one mistake, like forgetting the dog, makes you its lunch. Lesson: planning's not a game. It's your lifeline, fragile as old parchment. But plans always have holes, like a scratched vinyl skipping a song. Once you disguised as a servant, slipping into a duke's castle. You memorized guard shifts. They change when the church bell tolls. The back gate creaks if pushed hard. You carried a wine tray, head down, through the kitchen, where the cook eyed you like you stole her hen. You neared the duke's room, heart pounding, hand on the hidden dagger. But then a jester, yes, a damn sober jester with a stick, stopped you, barking, "Who are you?" "Never seen you." You stammered, "I'm new," but he yelled, and guards swarmed like bees. You ran, slipped in the hall, arrows whistling, and hid in a wine barrel, liquid up your nose. The scar on your leg, from banging the barrel, is a reminder: never underestimate the jester. You dream of a clean stab, like in a black and white noir, where the assassin glides in, strikes, and fades into fog. Reality? You grapple with guards, hounds, and stupid things like stuck doors or squeaky floors. Once you crept into a count's bedroom thinking he's asleep. You raised the dagger, but he's awake, reading by candlelight. He screamed, you stabbed, but his hidden armor blocked it. You wrestled, fell, banged your head on a table, and fled as guards rushed in. You hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest, and learned, check the target first, because a bad stab's a ticket to the gallows. You learned to read a castle like a tattered book. You count stairs, note stuck doors, know which guard's asthmatic wheeze to avoid. You eavesdrop at markets, bribe pages with coins, but even then, luck's your biggest need. Once you slipped through a back gate, thinking it perfect, but a hound smelled you. You tossed dried meat, praying it took the bait, and ran as it barked. You escaped, but the scar on your hand from scraping the gate reminds you, hounds are worse than guards. Lesson? A castle's no home. It's a maze, and you're the rat in the trap. Each job's a chess game, and you're always at a disadvantage. Guards aren't just numerous. They're trained, well-fed, well-rested, unlike you, hungry, sleeping in stables. The target's spies, the page, the cook, the laundry girl, are sharper than your dagger. Once you posed as a roofer, climbing a castle tower, but a laundry girl spotted you, whispered to a guard. You ran, arrows falling like rain, and hid in a forest, starving for 3 days. Lesson: never be seen, because eyes are invisible blades. But don't dream of easy wins. Your targets are power, and power doesn't die easy. They've got money, men, and the luck you lack. Tonight, you stand outside the castle, moonlight glinting on stone walls like a sneer. You review your mental map, rusty dagger in hand, and wonder, can you outsmart the guards, hounds, and that damn sober jester? You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you step forward, because stopping is death. The story's not done. You've faced powerful targets, but now you face something worse: solitude, when the world turns its back and your only friends are a dagger and secrets. Hide the blade, step into the dark, and get ready, because this trade offers no friends, only fear. Think guards and jesters are your biggest challenge? Not yet. The assassin's life is lonelier than a moonless night, when you dare not trust anyone. Friends pry, lovers notice bloodstains, and the world wants you dead. Check the dagger, because the road ahead's just you and the shadows. Think being an assassin means a secret club, swapping adventure tales by a hearth like an old cowboy flick? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. You live alone, a ghost shunned by the world, skulking in shadows with a rusty dagger and secrets heavy as lead. No assassin guild, no buddy to share a pint or slap your back after a job. You can't trust anyone. Friends get nosy, lovers spot blood on your cloak, clients sell you for a cheap ale. You keep an old tarnished coin to remind you you were human once, but your only true friends are secrets and a dagger. Want company? Befriend your blade? It's the only thing that won't stab you in the back. Picture you in a grimy tavern corner, candlelight flickering like death's sneer. Around you, horse traders, barmaids, and drunk soldiers laugh and clink mugs, but you're a shadow, at the back table, back to the wall, eyes on the door. You don't drink much, because ale loosens tongues, and one slip means a bounty on your head. You don't laugh loud because laughter draws eyes, and eyes are invisible daggers. You learn to be invisible, like a song with forgotten lyrics on an old vinyl, but the cost is solitude, like standing alone in a moonless forest. You once had friends, or thought you did. Back when you were a farmer or young soldier, you shared bread by the fire, swapped tales of harvests or battles. Now, friends are danger. Once you ran into an old drinking buddy, now a blacksmith in a nearby village. He clapped your shoulder, asked, "Where you been?" You forced a smile, mumbled about selling firewood, but his eyes pried, like he smelled blood on your cloak. That night, you fled the village because one harmless question could bring guards. The scar on your heart from abandoning that friend reminds you. Friends are a luxury, like dreaming of a warm cottage you'll never have. A lover? Don't make me laugh. You once fancied a laundry girl at the market, her golden hair like sunlight, her smile making you forget the mud on your boots. You chatted a few times, slipped her a coin for bread, but then she saw blood on your cloak, dried like red ink. "What's that blood?" she asked, voice trembling. You muttered about a hunted rabbit, but her eyes shifted, seeing a monster behind your smile. You never went back, because love exposes weakness, like leaving a dagger under your pillow unchecked. Lesson: lovers aren't allies. They're the first to snitch when guards knock. Clients? They're the worst. Those who hire you, nobles, merchants, or hooded creeps, don't see you as human. You're a tool, like a broken shovel, used and discarded. Once you finished a job, killed a fur trader in an alley. The client, a fat merchant, promised gold, but when you showed up, he sold you to guards for a pint and some clout. You ran, arrows whistling, hiding in a sewer, filth up to your chest. The scar on your shoulder, from a grazing arrow, is a reminder. Clients aren't friends, they're vipers, and you're a rat in their lair. You don't trust anyone, not even yourself. Tonight you sit in an abandoned stable, hand on an old tarnished coin, the last relic of a life before daggers. It's dull, like memories of a farmer laughing in a field. You grip it, like clinging to the last thread of who you were, but then tuck it away, because remembering makes your hand shake when you stab. Your secrets, target names, blood on your hands, clients' betrayals, weigh like lead, pressing your chest like a requiem. The dagger, hidden in your cloak, is your only friend, because it doesn't ask, doesn't judge, doesn't sell you for a pint. You learn to live with solitude, like chronic pain. You don't stay in one village long, because glares cut sharper than blades. You don't use your real name, because names are nooses. Once you almost said your name to a barmaid, just because her smile reminded you of your mother. But you stopped, bit your lip, and fled before her invisible dagger struck. You don't dream of friends, because dreams are weaknesses. You don't dream of family, because you buried them under the haystack you hid in last night. You only dream of surviving, but even that's faint, like ink on wet paper. No assassin guild, no allies. Tavern whispers of a cloaked brotherhood are just drunken nonsense like a staticky radio song. You met another assassin once in a dark alley. He glanced at you, hand on his dagger, like you were his next job. You passed, back cold, and learned. Assassins aren't colleagues. They're rivals, ready to gut you for a contract. You live alone, move alone, die alone, if death grants you a gentle end, which it rarely does. Tonight you sit in a tavern corner, candlelight painting your face like an unfinished portrait. You touch the old coin, the dagger in your cloak, and wonder, how long till solitude swallows you? You smirk thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you keep going because stopping is death. The story's not done. You're used to loneliness, but now you face the consequences of this life. Failure or success, you're one step from death, and each job's a new noose. Stand up, check the dagger, and get ready, because hell's waiting, and it's not patient. Think solitude's the heaviest price of being an assassin? Not yet. Failure or success, you're hunted like a dog, because every job's a new noose, and death's always tugging the other end. Hide the dagger, because the next lesson's bloodier than this lonely night. Think the assassin's life has moments of glory, like a knight raising a sword in golden sunlight in a black and white film? Wake up, like snapping out of a night of spooky radio tales. Failure or success, you're running like a hunted dog, heart pounding, blood on your boots, death at your heels. Fail, and you're wanted, tortured, or hanged in the market square, with crowds howling like spectators at a chained bear. Succeed, you're a threat to your client, hunted like a beast in the woods. You plan escape routes, secret exits, cloaks stashed in sewers, because a good assassin doesn't just kill, they vanish like mist. Win or lose, you run like death's chasing, because it is. Picture you just finished a job, your rusty dagger still warm with a count's blood. You slip past guards, hounds, and that damn sober jester with a stick. One stab, not clean, but enough to drop him. Think you've won? Big mistake. Success isn't a pint waiting at the tavern. It's alarm bells, hoofbeats, and wanted posters in the market. Your client, the fat merchant who hired you, doesn't pat your back. He wants you gone because you know too much. His name, his crime, the fear in his eyes when he paid. You run through dark alleys, forests, sewers, filth up to your chest, praying guards don't smell the blood on your cloak. Success makes you a target. Once you killed a bishop in his prayer room, thinking the job done. You went for the second half of the payment, but instead of the client, two bruisers waited, knives gleaming, muttering, "Boss wants no witnesses." You ran, arrows whistling, slipping in mud, escaping thanks to a spare cloak hidden in a sewer. Your planned getaway. The scar on your arm from a grazing arrow is a reminder. Success isn't the end. It's the start of the hunt. Lesson? A good assassin doesn't just stab. They dissolve, like a song skipping on an old vinyl. Failure's worse, a nightmare, uglier than death. Once you sneaked into a duke's castle, disguised as a roofer. You mapped stairs, dodged hounds, but misjudged one thing. The duke's door was stuck, squeaking like it laughed at you. He woke, screamed, and guards swarmed like bees. You ran, but slipped in the hall, dagger clattering, and got caught. Guards tied you, dragged you through the market, where crowds threw stones yelling, "Hang him!" You escaped, luck or a bribed jailer, but the scar on your back from a whipping warns. Failure's no small error. It's the gallows, torture, or a gleaming axe. You learn to live with this deadly coin's two faces. Succeed, you run because clients want silence. Fail, you run because the world wants your head. You plan escapes like a sailor charts a storm. Before each job, you scout secret exits, back gates, narrow alleys, abandoned stables. You hide spare cloaks in sewers, praying rain doesn't soak them because a wet cloak's heavy, and heavy's death. Once you set 3 escape routes, back gate, roof, kitchen barrel. But when the job failed, the target woke, guards chased, all 3 were blocked. You hid in a forest, starving 3 days, and learned, even the best plans crumble like a wooden house in a gale. You run, always run. Succeed, you sprint through alleys, fields, strange villages, praying locals don't spot the weird cloaked guy. Fail, you flee with guards behind, hounds barking, arrows raining. Once you botched a merchant hit, and he lived, blabbing about the cloaked dagger guy at the market. Wanted posters went up, sketching your face, badly, but enough to make villagers glare when you bought bread. You ran, hid in a pigsty, stench choking you, and learned. Failure's not just death. It's living scared of capture every day. No rest for you. Succeed. You don't toast victory. You check exits, wipe blood from the dagger, and bolt before the client rethinks. Fail. You don't sulk. You run because guards don't rest, and death never does. Once you thought you were safe after a clean job, sipping a rare ale in a tavern, but a drunk at the next table eyed you, whispered to the barkeep, and guards walked in. You ran through the back door, slipping in an alley, escaping via a scouted secret path. The scar on your leg from that fall is a reminder. No safety, only running. You live like a hunted dog, always glancing back, hearing hoofbeats in dreams. Success or failure, your prey, for clients, guards, fate itself. You learn to vanish like morning mist, but each run costs you hope, trust, the last scraps of the man you were. You keep an old tarnished coin, but don't look, because it recalls a life you lost. The dagger hidden in your cloak is your only friend, but even it dulls when you need it most. Tonight, you sit in an abandoned stable, moonlight sneering through slats. You check the dagger, still rusty, but sharp. You touch the spare cloak, stashed in a corner, and wonder, where'll you run if this job fails? You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you step forward, because stopping is death. The story's not done. You're used to running, but now you face something worse. The villagers' superstitions, whispering you smear blood on your dagger under a full moon. Hide the blade, step into the dark, and get ready, because a torch-wielding mob's waiting. Think running's the worst part of being an assassin? Not yet. Villagers see you as a monster, whispering you chant requiems under moonlight, ready to torch you for a weird glance. Check the dagger, because the next nightmare's not guards, but a village wanting your head. Think being an assassin's just dodging guards or arrows in alleys? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. Villagers see you as a monster, like you chant requiems under moonlight, smear blood on your dagger at full moon, or turn into a bat and flit over the village at midnight. Superstition makes you hunted, not just for killing, but for being a glitch in God's plan, a black ink blot on His holy book. You learn to use their fear, spreading rumors you wield magic to scare guards, because if they think you breathe death, they won't chase. But don't get smug. You don't need a dagger to kill. One glare, and a village grabs torches, ready to roast you like a chicken. Picture you walking through a village at dusk, frayed cloak hiding your face, but villagers' eyes cut sharper than your rusty dagger. The blacksmith stops hammering, the baker clutches her basket. Kids run home, whispering, "It's the cloaked guy, the one who deals with demons." You're just buying moldy bread, but they've spun tales. The assassin who smears blood on his dagger under moonlight, drinks goat blood to summon devils, or turns into a bat when the church bell tolls. You smirk, thinking if you could bat transform, you'd have flown from this wretched trade ages ago. But your smirk fades when an old woman crosses herself like you're the plague on legs. Superstition's no joke. It's the torch that burns you. Once, you rested in a small village just to buy bread and sleep in a stable. But by morning, the village gathered outside the church, wielding shovels, screaming, "The cloaked guy's a witch." Apparently, a hen died overnight, probably a fox, but they blamed you because you carried odd herbs, just dried leaves for wounds. You ran, stones flying, nearly slipping in mud, and escaped by hiding in a forest. The scar on your hand from a thrown rock is a reminder. Villagers don't need proof. They need fear to light torches. Lesson? Don't linger, because superstition spreads faster than wildfire. You learn to live with whispers behind you, like chronic pain. Every village you pass, your legend grows, like a spooky song on an old vinyl, embellished with each telling. They say you pact with demons, sleep in coffins, smear frog guts on your dagger for silent kills. Once you overheard a barmaid claim, "The cloaked guy breathes death, makes kids feverish." You nearly laughed, but then saw guards patrolling, swords drawn, because villagers reported a witch at the market. You slipped out the back, heart pounding, and learned, superstition's not just whispers. It's a gleaming axe. You start using their fear, like a bad noir actor wielding a glare. Once a guard cornered you in an alley, sword at your throat. Instead of begging, you stared, whispering, "Know what my dagger's smeared with?" He paled, backed off, because village tales of the cloaked witch spooked him. You escaped, but didn't smile, because fake magic's a double-edged blade. Another time you dropped odd leaves outside a church, sparking whispers of curses. Guards avoided you, but an old soup vendor crossed herself, and that night you fled as a torch-wielding mob gathered. The scar on your leg from a fall while running is a warning. Fake magic saves you today, but tomorrow it burns you. Superstition doesn't just come from villagers, it seeps into you like ink into paper. You start wondering, am I a monster? Tonight you sit in an abandoned stable, moonlight sneering through slats. You touch the dagger, see dried blood, and flinch, not for the blood, but because you don't recall whose it is. You were a farmer, a soldier, but now, what are you? A ghost? A glitch, as villagers whisper? You grip the tarnished coin in your pouch, but don't look, fearing a monster's face in it. You smirk, thinking if you're a monster, at least you're a monster who runs. Villagers don't need truth. They need a monster to fear, to hate, to burn. Once you saved a girl who fell at the market, guiding her to her mother. But the mother crossed herself, yanked the kid away, like you'd eat her. You stood, hands empty, hearing whispers. The cloaked guy, he steals kids' souls. You fled, guards chasing, and hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest. The scar on your heart from being misjudged cuts deeper than any blade. Lesson: don't do good, because kindness is a noose. You can't pause, can't live like a man. Every village is a trap, every glance an axe. You move at night, sleep in stables, eat moldy bread, because daylight invites torches. You spread magic rumors to survive, but each whisper you create is a dagger turning back. You're a monster, not because you chose it, but because the world needs you to be. The dagger, hidden in your cloak, is your only friend, but even it dulls when you need it. Tonight, you stand outside a village, moonlight painting your frayed cloak like a torn portrait. You check the dagger, hear distant dog barks, and wonder, what'll they say about you this time? You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you step forward because stopping is death. The story's not done. You're used to superstitious whispers, but now you face your elegant weapon, poison, promising silent kills, but betraying you faster than a torch-wielding mob. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because poison's waiting, and it's not patient. Think torch-wielding mobs are the worst nightmare? Not yet. Poison, your elegant weapon brewed from weeds and hope, betrays you faster than superstitious whispers, making you wonder who the real target is. Check the vial, because the next lesson's bitterer than villagers' glares. Think being an assassin means slipping into a feast, dropping a speck of poison in a silver goblet, watching the target collapse silently, like a dramatic black and white noir scene. Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. Poison's elegant, but using it's like playing cards with death, and you rarely hold the ace. You dream of a drop in a goblet, the target keeling over. No noise, no guards, no hounds. Reality? Your poison, made from roots, mold, and shaky hope, might just dizzy the target, make them grimace, and suspect the soup. You sneak into chaotic kitchens, praying you don't mix up cups, because a mistake means you're drinking your own ticket to hell. Poison? It's like sending a love letter with no address, and you're the one who pays, retching in a sewer because you grabbed the wrong vial. Picture you in a shadowed corner, fog coiling like a shroud, clutching a tiny, foul-smelling vial like a broken dream. You're no silk-robed alchemist in an ivory tower with a bubbling cauldron. You're a desperate assassin, scavenging roots behind a pigsty, picking moldy mushrooms in a forest, and boiling them in a pot borrowed from a market soup hag. The result? A sludgy, mud-colored mess, reeking like a client's promise. You stash it in your pouch, praying it doesn't leak, because if it seeps through your cloak, you'll be the first to drop before you can spike the target's wine. You learn to use poison through near deaths, not skill, but lack of options. Your rusty dagger dulls, your rope knots wrong, and clients demand no trace kills. So you try poison, thinking it's classy, like a bloodless stab. Your first go, you slip poison into a merchant's soup at a feast. You sneak into the kitchen, posing as a servant, hands shaking as you pour, praying you don't mix bowls. Result? He doesn't die, just pukes across the table, yelling about the cook, and the castle goes on alert. You run, guards chasing, and hide in a wine barrel, liquid up your nose. The scar on your hand from banging the barrel is a reminder. Poison's no friend. It's a lazy traitor. You dream of perfect poison, like in fairy tales, where one drop kills silently. Reality? You brew from weeds, odd mushrooms, and some frog guts from a swamp, clueless if they'll kill or just stink. No recipe, no measures, just gut and prayers. Once you spiked a count's wine, thinking victory. He just grimaced, ordered bread, and lived a decade more, healthy as a horse. You ran because clients don't pay for dizzy. You hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest, and learned. Poison's as reliable as a client's word. You learned to dose poison in chaotic kitchens where cooks chop meat, servants spill wine, and the soup smell masks your vial's stench. Once you disguised as a kitchen hand, sneaking into a bishop's castle. You poured poison into a soup pot, hands trembling, praying you didn't mix it up. But a servant, that damn sharp-eyed bastard, tasted it first and collapsed, face purple. The kitchen erupted, guards swarmed, and you ran, slipping in the hall, arrows whistling. You hid in a forest, starving 3 days, and learned, check who tastes the soup, because the wrong cup invites death. The scar on your leg from the fall is a warning. Poison's a gamble, and you rarely win. You try to improve, but poison keeps betraying. You brew lighter doses, thinking it'll kill slowly but surely. Result? The target just gets a stomachache, calls a healer, and the castle doubles guards. You try heavier doses, but nearly die inhaling the fumes, retching in a stable. Lesson: poison's no science. It's a dice roll, and death holds the ace. You store the vial tighter, wrapped in oiled cloth, but each whiff reminds you, this isn't elegant, it's a curse you brewed. You live with poison's betrayal, like chronic pain. Once you spiked a duke's wine, but his hound, that damn sniffer, smelled it and barked like mad. You ran, guards chasing, and hid in a trash heap, stench overpowering even the poison. The scar on your shoulder from a grazing arrow is a reminder, hounds outsmart you. You doubt poison, but carry it, because a dull dagger and bad rope are worse. You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, where the elegant weapon's the quickest to snitch. You don't trust poison, but use it like a sailor trusting torn sails in a storm. Once you nearly mixed up the poison vial with your wine flask just because it was dark and your hands shook. You froze, heart exploding, and learned, check the vial before pouring. But don't dream of easy wins. Poison's a double-edged blade, and you're usually the one cut. You keep the vial close, not from love, but as a last desperate hope, thin as old parchment. Tonight you sit in an abandoned stable, moonlight sneering through slats. You check the poison, still foul, but maybe usable. You touch the rusty dagger, think of the next job, and wonder, will poison kill the target, or you this time? The story's not done. You're used to poison's betrayal, but now you face a bigger foe. The church, calling you Satan's pet, ringing bells to rally villagers to hunt you. Hide the vial, step into the dark, and get ready, because the church is waiting, and they're not patient. Think poison's betrayal is the worst nightmare? Not yet. The church sees you as Satan's pet, ringing bells to summon torch-wielding villagers to hunt you like a beast. Check the dagger, because the next lesson's hotter than their torches. Think being an assassin's just dodging guards or fleeing superstitious torch mobs? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. The church despises you. They brand you Satan's pet, a devil worshiper, ringing bells to rally villagers with shovels to hunt you like a wild beast. A pouch of odd herbs or an out-of-town accent's enough to get you labeled a witch, dragged to the stake faster than you can say, I'm innocent. You learn to dodge priests like the plague, but church bells haunt your dreams, reminding you all you wanted was a quiet loaf of bread, but the church has your name on a pyre. Picture you entering a village at dusk, frayed cloak hiding your face, just to buy moldy bread to ease your hunger. But the church bells toll, urgent as war drums, and villagers gather, eyes glinting like their torches. The priest, a silver-bearded man in a black robe, stands on a platform, pointing at you, bellowing, Satan's servant, he brings curses to our village. You've done nothing but cough lightly, but a pouch of herbs, dried leaves for wounds, falls out, and the crowd crosses themselves like you summoned a demon. You run, stones flying, slipping in mud, and escape by hiding in an abandoned stable. The scar on your hand from a thrown rock is a reminder. The church needs no proof. They need a monster to burn. The church isn't just an enemy. They're a nightmare in holy robes. Villagers fear you for superstition, but the church hunts you for power. You're the perfect excuse to ring bells, gather crowds, and remind everyone only God and the priest can save them. Once you rested in a small village thinking yourself invisible, but the priest, eyes sharp as a hawk, caught your slight accent. You're from 3 days away. He whispered to the crowd, called you heretic, and that night you fled as torches lit up like deadly fireworks. The scar on your leg from a fall while running is a warning. Your voice is a noose. You learn to dodge priests like the plague, but they're everywhere like smoke clinging to your cloak. You avoid markets when bells toll because that's when priests patrol, eyes scanning for devils. You don't sleep near churches because midnight bells sound like they're calling your name. Once, you were nearly caught posing as a roofer, working near a church. The priest, nose red from holy wine, eyed you, asked, "Where you from?" You mumbled about a far village, but he sniffed your herb pouch, screamed, "Witch!" You ran, church guards chasing, and hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest. The scar on your shoulder from a grazing arrow is a reminder. Priests are worse than guards because they've got God on their side. You live with the bells, but they haunt your dreams, like an endless requiem. You dream of pyres, flames licking your feet, the priest chanting in a monotone, like a vinyl stuck on a sad note. You wake, hand on the dagger, wondering, am I the devil? You were a farmer, a soldier, but now the church writes you into Scripture, the Antichrist. You grip the tarnished coin in your pouch, but don't look, fearing your own face, the monster the church painted. You smirk, thinking if you're a devil, at least you're a devil who runs. The church doesn't just hunt you, they make you a dark legend. Villagers whisper you drink kids' blood, smear frog guts on your dagger, or summon demons with herbs. Once you heard a baker claim, "The cloaked guy curses cows to dry up." You nearly laughed, but then saw the priest leading a torch-wielding mob to the tavern you just left. You slipped out the back, heart pounding, and learned. The church doesn't need truth. They need a monster to keep villagers scared and obedient. You spread magic rumors to scare guards, but each whispers a dagger turning back, because the church hears, and they don't forgive. You don't do good, because kindness is a trap. Once, you gave a coin to a flower-selling girl because she reminded you of a sister long gone. But her mother saw, crossed herself, yanked the kid away, and whispered to the priest. That night, you fled, torches blazing behind like fireworks welcoming death. The scar on your heart from being misjudged cuts deeper than any blade. Lesson: don't show your humanity, because the church will burn it before you can explain. The dagger, hidden in your cloak, is your only friend, but even it dulls when you need it. You live like a ghost, moving at night, sleeping in stables, eating moldy bread, because daylight invites pyres. You dodge churches, priests, but bells chase you like a spooky song that won't stop. You're Satan's pet, not by choice, but because the church needs you to be. You once dreamed of a quiet life, a loaf of bread, a roof, a day without running. But that dream smoke because the church carved your name on a pyre, ready to burn you to save village souls. Tonight, you stand outside a village, moonlight painting your frayed cloak like a torn portrait. You check the dagger, hear distant church bells, and wonder, what'll the church call you this time? You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you step forward because stopping is death. The story's not done. You're used to bells and torches, but now you face another enemy. Other assassins, ready to steal your job or sell you for a pint. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because colleagues in this trade aren't friends. They're blades in your back. Think the church with its torches is your worst foe? Not yet. Other assassins, cloaked figures in alleys, are ready to steal your contract or snitch for a cheap ale, because in this trade, colleagues are the sharpest blades. Check the dagger, because the next lesson's bloodier than a pyre. Think the assassin's life has brotherhood, like soldiers sharing ale after a battle in a black and white film? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. Other assassins aren't colleagues. They're threats, ready to snatch your job or sell you for a tavern pint. You don't just worry about clients betraying or the church with torches. That cloaked guy in the alley might tip guards to steal your contract, eyes darting like a rat in a granary. They're not friends, they're rivals, and loyalty's rarer than snow in summer. You learn to stay one step ahead, spreading fake rumors about them to keep your job. But don't get smug. Colleagues? In this trade, friends stab you fastest. Picture you in an alley at midnight, fog coiling like a shroud, hand on your rusty dagger. You heard of a fat contract, account needs to vanish, client promising a heavy pouch. But at the tavern to meet the client, another cloaked figure's there, eyeing you like you're his next mark. He's tall, lean, face scarred, hand near his dagger, ready to gut you if you speak. You get it. He knows about the job, and only one gets it. You back off, heart pounding, and learn lesson 1. Assassins don't share, they steal with blood if needed. You see these guys everywhere, other ghosts lurking in alleys, taverns, village markets. They don't introduce, don't shake hands. They glance, size you up, like a noir cowboy eyeing a rival before a duel. Once you took a job to kill a merchant, but at the rendezvous, another assassin, hood low, voice like a scratched vinyl, was there, pouch in hand. He smirked, whispered, "Too slow, pal." You gritted your teeth because slow means hungry, and hungry's death. That night, you spread a fake rumor in the tavern that he's a guard spy. By morning, he's chased, and you snag the contract. The scar on your heart from playing dirty reminds you, in this trade, you've got to be dirtier than your rival. Other assassins don't just steal jobs, they sell you faster than clients. Once, you and another guy, cross-eyed, curved dagger, took a double contract. 2 targets, split pay. You thought you could trust him like soldiers trust comrades. Big mistake. As you sneaked into the castle, he tipped the guards, trading you for a pint and some clout. Guards swarmed, swords gleaming, and you ran, slipping in the hall, arrows whistling. You hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest, and learned. Assassins have no allies. They have daggers, and those daggers point at you. The scar on your shoulder from a grazing arrow is a warning. Don't trust the guy with the blade beside you. You learn to stay ahead, like a sailor charting a storm. You spread fake rumors, like poisoning a rival's reputation. Once, you heard another assassin, bushy beard, low voice, brag about a job on a bishop. You didn't confront. You left a fake letter in the tavern, claiming he's a witch smearing blood under moonlight. The priest read it, rang the church bells, and he fled, ditching the contract. You took it, but didn't smile, because every rumor's a double-edged dagger. Another time, an assassin learned you spread lies and retaliated, tipping guards you were in the next village. You ran, stones flying, and hid in a stable. Lesson: dirty play costs, and the cost's your life. You don't trust anyone, not even passing assassins. They've got no names, just nicknames. Cross-eye, bushy beard, curved blade, like characters in a spooky tale. Once you sat in a tavern, listening to Cross-eye boast about nearly dying scaling a castle wall. You listened, thinking to learn, but saw him eye your coin pouch, hand on his dagger. You slipped out the back, heart pounding, and learned. An assassin's words are bait, and you're the fish. You don't sleep near them, don't drink with them, because a pint's death's invitation. You live with eyes on your back like chronic pain. Every tavern visit, you scan dark corners for other cloaks. Every contract, you wonder, who else knows? Once, curved blade nearly gutted you in an alley, thinking you stole his job. You wrestled, dagger slipping, and escaped by tossing a fake pouch as bait. The scar on your hand from his blade is a reminder. Other assassins are worse than guards because they know how you think. You learn to be invisible, like a forgotten song on an old vinyl. But solitude doesn't shield you from their blades. You don't dream of brotherhood because dreams are weaknesses. You once thought you could share a job, like soldiers sharing bread. But every try got you a dagger in the back, or worse, a bounty from guards they sold you to. You keep the tarnished coin, but don't look because it recalls days you trusted. The dagger hidden in your cloak is your only friend, but even it dulls when you need it. Tonight you stand in a dark alley, moonlight painting your frayed cloak like a torn portrait. You check the dagger, hear distant footsteps, and wonder, another assassin or a guard? You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you step forward because stopping is death. The story's not done. You're used to backstabbing colleagues, but now you face another challenge, gathering intel like a bad detective because one wrong detail makes you guard bait. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because this trade doesn't rest, and intel's your lifeline. Think that alley assassin's your biggest threat? Not yet. Gathering intel, eavesdropping, sketching castle layouts, bribing pages is a bad detective's game, and one wrong detail makes you a blood mural on the city gate. Check the dagger, because the next lesson's sharper than a colleague's blade. Think being an assassin slipping into a castle, landing one stab, and vanishing like a noir film star? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. Before you strike, you gather intel like a shoddy detective, eavesdropping in taverns, posing as a peddler to sketch castle layouts, or bribing a page with your last coin. But one wrong detail, wrong door, guard shift change, or a hound sniffing you, makes you dog meat, or worse, a blood mural on the city gate. Every night you dream of castle layouts, but they blur like ink on wet paper, like fate's laughing at you. Think you're Sherlock? No, you're a guy about to fall into a well with a bad map, and this well's bottomless. Picture you in a grimy tavern, candlelight sneering like death's smirk. Your hunched, frayed cloak hiding your face, posing as a firewood peddler new to the village. Your ears strain, catching drunk guards bragging. The castle's back gate opens at dawn, but there's a hound big as a bear. You note it, sketching a mental map. 32 stairs, 2 guards, 1 dog. But as you leave, the barkeep eyes you, like he smells blood on your cloak. You slip out the back, heart pounding, and learn lesson 1. Eavesdropping's your lifeline, but eyes are invisible daggers. The scar on your heart, from nearly being ratted out, is a reminder. You're no detective, you're a rat in a trap. You learn to gather intel through near deaths, not skill, but necessity. Before each job, you haunt village markets, posing as a peddler, pushing a firewood cart to hear horse traders whisper. The Duke sleeps in the tower, but the door sticks, squeals like a gutted pig. You bribe a page with your last coin to spill. Guards change at the 3rd church bell. You sketch a castle map in your head. Back gate, hall, 18 stairs, but each detail's a thread keeping you alive, fragile as old parchment. Once, you got a detail wrong. A page said the back gate was open, but forgot the hound. You sneaked in, and the beast barked like mad, guards swarming. You ran, arrows whistling, and hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest. The scar on your shoulder from a grazing arrow is a warning. One wrong detail's a ticket to death. You've got no detective's office, no magnifying glass, or pipe like Sherlock. Your tools are ears, eyes, and a pinch of divine luck. But luck's rarer than summer snow. You learn to read a village like a tattered book. You stand at the market corner, posing as a cobbler, hearing the baker say, "The Count hunts, leaves the castle empty at noon." You note it, but when you reach the castle, the Count's home. Guards thick as flies. The baker lied, or you didn't pay enough. You ran, slipped in a forest, and learned. Don't trust whispers unless you pay more than the guards. The scar on your leg, from the fall, is a reminder. Intel's blood, and you bleed first. You learn to bribe, but coins don't buy loyalty. Once, you gave 2 coins to a cart driver to leave a stable door cracked for your escape. He nodded, grinned like a friend, but when you fled a botched job, the stable was locked, guards waiting. The driver sold you for a pint, and you ran, guards chasing, hiding in a trash heap, stench overpowering blood. The scar on your hand from banging the heap is a warning. Coins buy words, but words are double-edged. Lesson: pay more or find intel yourself, because pages, drivers, or bakers are guards in disguise. You learn to sketch castle layouts, but they're never perfect. You note the back gate creaks, the hall has 12 stairs, the guard with asthma wheezes at midnight. But your mental map blurs from hunger, exhaustion, fear. Once you sneaked into a bishop's castle, thinking your map flawless. But you were wrong. His room wasn't in the tower, but the kitchen, and you bumped the cook, who screamed like a gutted pig. You ran, guards chasing, and hid in a stable, manure stench clinging. The scar on your back, from a whip when nearly caught, is a reminder. A bad map's a deep well, and you're falling. You live with fear of mistakes, like chronic pain. Every night you dream of castle layouts, Doors, stairs, guards, but they blur like a song stuck on a scratched vinyl. You wake, hand on the dagger, wondering, what did I miss? Once you forgot to check guard shifts, and they changed early, blocking the back gate. You ran, arrows raining, and hid in a forest, starving 3 days. The scar on your heart from that near death cuts deeper than any blade. Lesson: intel's your lifeline, but you're no detective. You're a desperate guy, sketching maps with blood and sweat. You don't trust anyone, not even yourself. You eavesdrop, bribe, sketch, but each detail's a chess move, and you're always at a disadvantage. You once dreamed of an easy job, no guards, no hounds, but that dream's smoke, because this trade has no easy. The dagger, hidden in your cloak, is your only friend, but it dulls when you need it. The tarnished coin, dull as memory, recalls days before daggers, but you don't look, fearing the face of a bad detective, your face. Tonight you stand outside a castle, moonlight painting your frayed cloak like a torn portrait. You check the dagger, recite your map, 18 stairs, back gate, hound, and wonder. What'll you miss this time? You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but you step forward because stopping is death. The story's not done. You're used to blurry maps and bad details, but now you face the long-term cost of this life. Nightmares, coughs from sewers, and fear haunting you like a ghost. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because this trade doesn't forgive, and your past's chasing you. Think bad maps are the worst nightmare? Not yet. The assassin's life breaks you from the inside out. Nightmares, coughs from sewers, and fear haunting you like a spooky requiem. Check the dagger, because the next lesson's heavier than a castle full of guards. Think surviving a few assassin jobs is a win, like a noir film hero stepping from fog with a smug grin? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. Surviving long-term destroys you, like a rotting house in endless rain, boards falling, cracks spreading. If you make it through a few jobs, nightmares of guards and raspy coughs from sewer nights cling like a requiem. You jump at every knock, see guards in your sleep, heart pounding like war drums. The dagger's still under the floor, but your hand shakes holding it, like it's judging you, whispering, "Why are you still alive?" Long life? This trade doesn't let you live. It lets you exist, a walking corpse dragging through shadows. Picture you in an abandoned stable, moonlight sneering through slats like death's smirk. You've survived 5 jobs. Luck or a curse, you're not sure. But the cost? Your body's a map of pain. Scars on your shoulder from arrows, leg from falls, hand from a slipped blade. Worse are the unseen scars. Nightmares every night, running but guards always catch you, or dreams of blood so thick you wake smelling iron, though your hands are clean. You cough hoarsely, not from cold, but from sewer nights, filth seeping into your lungs like a reminder. This trade doesn't just take your soul, it takes your flesh. You were a farmer, a soldier, eyes bright with dreams of a cottage, fields, or battlefield glory. Now what are you? A ghost, frayed cloak, face gaunt like a torn portrait. You don't recall the last time you laughed, not bitterly or sardonically. Once, in a tavern, a barmaid's folk song stung your chest, like a lost memory. You stood, slipped out the back, because feelings are weaknesses, like leaving a dagger unchecked under your pillow. The scar on your heart, from burying dreams, cuts deeper than any blade, reminding you surviving isn't living, it's prolonging the agony. You jump at every sound, like a sailor hearing waves before a storm. A knock, guards, dog bark, torch-wielding villagers, wind through slats, priests ringing bells. Once you slept in a stable, waking to distant hoofbeats. You grabbed the dagger, heart exploding, but it was just a horse trader passing. You couldn't sleep again, because fear's in your blood, like ink in paper. You see guards in dreams, hear church bells, smell pyre smoke, deep in forests. You live, but each day's a death, like a vinyl stuck on a sad note. Your hand shakes, holding the dagger, not from cold or hunger, but because it's heavier than before. Every stab you've landed, count, merchant, bishop, leaves a mark, not on the blade, but in you. You stare at the dagger hidden under the floorboards, its rusty edge like your conscience, and wonder, is it judging you, or are you judging it? Once you nearly botched a hit because your hand trembled, the blade slipping, and you grappled, blood coating your hands. You escaped, but that night you didn't dare touch the dagger, like it might whisper your crimes. The scar on your hand from that slip is a reminder. This trade doesn't just kill targets, it kills you, bit by bit. You don't dare look in a mirror, if there's even a mirror in a stable or seedy tavern. Once you caught your reflection in a puddle and flinched. Sunken eyes, hair like a crow's nest, face like a corpse. You turned away because that face isn't you. Or is it, the version this trade forged? You clutch the tarnished coin in your pouch, dull as memory. But don't look, fearing the farmer you once were, grinning at you like a judge. You used to dream of another life, fresh bread, a roof, someone waiting by the hearth. But that dream's gone, smoke in the wind, because this trade doesn't give dreams. It gives nightmares, and you live in them. You survive, but the cost is a hollow existence. No friends, because friends snitch. No lover, because they spot blood on your cloak. No family, because you buried them under the haystack you hid in. All you've got is the dagger, the coin, and a raspy cough, a souvenir from sewer nights. Once, you nearly died coughing too hard while hiding in a wine barrel, alerting a guard. You ran, arrows whistling, and escaped through a dark alley. The scar on your shoulder from a grazing arrow is a warning. Your body betrays you, like clients, poison, or rival assassins. Lesson learned. Surviving long-term is a curse, not a prize. You don't dare stop because stopping is death. But every job, every chase, every nightmare wears you down, like a rotting house in endless rain. You once thought living long was winning, but now you know this trade has no winners, only survivors. You live, but you don't live. You exist, shambling like a walking corpse, dragging a dagger and a past heavy as lead. You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but your smirk's bitter as black coffee forgotten in a tavern. Tonight, you sit in an abandoned stable, moonlight sneering through slats like a judge. You check the dagger, still rusty but sharp enough. You cough hoarsely, hear the wind like guards' footsteps, and wonder, how long can you keep this up? The story's not done. You're used to nightmares and coughs, but now you face a lousy play of disguise, wearing an oversized monk's robe, faking a voice, praying you don't get caught, because one wrong glance means a pyre's waiting. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because this trade doesn't forgive, and the next act's coming. Think nightmares and coughs are the steepest price of being an assassin? Not yet. Disguise, wearing a monk's robe too big, faking a voice like a bad actor, is a play you must perform, and one wrong glance is your ticket to the pyre. Check the dagger, because the next lesson's sharper than a priest's stare. Think being an assassin means donning a sleek cloak, gliding through castles like a noir film star, eyes mysterious enough to make folks bow. Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. Disguise is a lousy play, but the stage is a suspicious castle where every glance from a cook or maid feels like a blade at your throat. You wear an oversized monk's robe, muttering requiems, or a grimy maid's dress, but sweat on your brow rats you out faster than a guard. You stammer, "I'm a roofer," when questioned, voice wobbling like a snapped lute string, and every botched accent makes you a laughingstock for the gallows with a jeering market crowd as your audience. Think you're a good actor? The castle's your critic, and they're ready to pelt you with stones, not applause. Picture you at a castle gate, fog coiling like a shroud, hand on the rusty dagger hidden in your cloak. To sneak in, you wear a monk's robe nicked from a drunk behind a church, so baggy it trips you every step. You bow your head, muttering prayers like you crammed them last minute, but a guard at the gate eyes you, sharp as a hawk. "What's your business?" he growls. You whisper, "Prayers for the Duke," but sweat drips down your forehead, glinting under torchlight. He nods, but his gaze trails you into the castle, an invisible dagger. You walk, heart pounding like war drums, and learn lesson 1. Disguise isn't just clothes. It's a performance, and you're a terrible actor. You play many roles, but none fit right. Once you wore a maid's dress, filthy like it came from a laundry heap, to slip into a castle kitchen. You carried a bread tray, head down, through a hall, but the cook, that sharp-eyed bastard, glanced over, barking, "New, are you?" "Never seen you." You mumbled, "From the next village," but your voice cracked, high like a boy's breaking. She screamed for guards, and you ran, tray crashing, slipping in the kitchen, hot oil splashing your hand. You hid in a wine barrel, liquid up your nose, and learned a bad accent's a noose. The scar on your hand from the oil is a reminder. Castles don't forgive bad actors. You learn disguise through near deaths, not talent, but necessity. You try posing as a roofer, climbing a castle tower, muttering about leaky tiles when a maid asks. But sweat on your brow, a shaky voice, and her suspicious glance betray you. She whispers to a cook who tips a guard, and you run, arrows whistling, hiding in a stable, manure stench clinging. The scar on your leg, from a fall while fleeing, is a warning. Disguise is a play, but the castle's cast, from maids to hounds, isn't clapping. They're throwing stones, or worse, axes. You've got no costume wardrobe, no masks like in fairy tales. Your disguises are trash. Monk's robe borrowed, maid's dress scavenged, or a guard's tunic stolen from a drunk. Once, you wore a guard's uniform, thinking it perfect for the castle gate. But a soldier asked for the password, and you fumbled, "I forgot." He roared, drew his sword, and you ran, the heavy tunic slowing you, slipping in mud. You hid in a sewer, filth up to your chest, and learned. Disguise isn't just clothes. It's voice, posture, and luck you rarely have. The scar on your shoulder, from a sword graze, is a reminder. The castle stage doesn't spare amateurs. You learn to act, but every role's a gamble. You pose as a firewood peddler, pushing a cart through a market, whispering to a page for intel. But a baker spots your boots, soldiers, not peasants. She whispers to a priest, and you run, torches blazing behind. Lesson, details, boots, voice, eyes, are nooses. Once you played a healer carrying herbs to enter a castle, but a cook sniffed your pouch, screamed, "Witch!" You ran, guards chasing, and hid in a forest, starving 3 days. The scar on your heart from being misjudged cuts deeper than any blade, reminding you even a good act won't save you. The castle's a brutal audience, offering no applause, only stones. Every glance, cook, maid, hound, is an invisible blade ready to gut you. You learn to bow low, step lightly, speak little, but sweat, a cracked voice, or odd gait betrays you. Once you posed as a minstrel, lute in hand, thinking it clever. But you forgot the song's words, and the jester, that damn sharp-eyed bastard, yelled, "He can't sing!" Guards swarmed. You ran, lute smashing, slipping in the courtyard. You hid in a trash heap, stench overpowering blood, and learned. The castle doesn't want actors, it wants victims. The scar on your hand from banging the heap is a reminder. Your play always ends in a chase. You live with fear of exposure, like chronic pain. Every disguise, you dream of a flawless act, like a noir film star, but you're a lousy actor, voice trembling, feet tripping, and the castle, your suspicious audience, is ready with a pyre. You clutch the tarnished coin, dull as memory, but don't look, fearing your own face, a failed actor's face. The dagger, hidden in your cloak, is your only friend, but it dulls when you need it. You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but your smirk's bitter as black coffee left cold in a tavern. Tonight, you stand outside a castle, moonlight painting your oversized monk's robe like a torn portrait. You check the dagger, mutter a requiem, and wonder what'll expose you this time, voice, sweat, or a glance? The story's not done. You're used to lousy plays, but now you face the final truth. No retirement, only vanishing, like a ghost in the fog. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because this trade doesn't forgive, and the final stage awaits. Think a bad disguise is your last hurdle? Not yet. The assassin's life has no retirement, just vanishing, like a forgotten song on a crackly radio, and every day survived is a step closer to eternal dark. Check the dagger, because the final lesson's colder than night fog. Think being an assassin has a retirement day? When you hang the rusty dagger on the wall, buy a riverside cottage, and sip wine by the hearth like a noir film hero? Ha! Snap out of it, like waking from a night of spooky radio tales. No retirement, you just vanish, like a song with forgotten lyrics on a hissing vinyl, fading into fog before anyone recalls your name. Assassins don't get riverside cottages, no farewell feast with wine and toasts. If you survive, a bloody miracle. You change your name, pose as an herb peddler, but every hoofbeat outside makes you flinch, hand on the dagger like reflex. You keep a coin pouch under the floor, but don't spend it, because it still reeks of blood, a curse trailing you to the grave. Retirement? You're a ghost dissolving before anyone carves your name. Picture you in a rickety shack, moonlight sneering through slats like death's smirk. You've survived dozens of jobs, counts, bishops, merchants, each stab a gamble with fate. But now what are you? A man old before his time, face gaunt, hair gray as fog, coughing from sewer nights and nightmares. You change your name, John, Thomas, anything not tied to blood, and pose as an herb peddler, wandering markets, muttering about stomach-soothing leaves. But every hoofbeat, every stranger's glance from a baker makes you jump, hand on the hidden dagger, like guards are still at your door. You survived, but surviving isn't living. It's dragging out the death rattle, like a rotting house in endless rain. You once dreamed of retirement, like a sailor dreams of a harbor after a storm. A small cottage, thatched roof, warm hearth, and no one knowing you ever held a dagger. But that dream's smoke, because this trade has no exit. You can't stop because old clients know your face, rival assassins want your rep, and the church still rings bells, calling you Satan's pet. Once you tried quitting, aiming to buy land in a far village. You paid a land peddler, but he eyed your pouch, smelled blood, and whispered to a priest. That night, you fled, torches blazing behind, and learned retirement's a trap, and traps always have guards. The scar on your heart from that shattered dream cuts deeper than any blade. You keep a pouch under the floor, but don't spend. Every coin, earned from a count's blood, a bishop's, a horse trader's, reeks of iron, a curse clinging to your hands. You thought money was freedom, but it's a shackle. Once you bought a hot loaf, thinking you deserved it. But the baker eyed your coin, asked, "Where's this from?" You mumbled about firewood, but her gaze cut like a blade, and you bolted before she snitched. Back in your shack, you buried the pouch deeper, learning money doesn't buy peace, it buys suspicious glares, and glares are axes. The scar on your hand from a near capture is a reminder. Your coins are dried blood, and blood doesn't wash off. You change names, villages, but the past won't let go. You pose as an herb peddler, but every horse cough, sewer's gift, makes villagers glance, whispering about the stranger with a curse. You avoid markets when church bells toll because they sound like your name. Once, you nearly got caught when a blacksmith spotted your boots. Soldiers, not peasants. He whispered to a guard, and you ran, stones flying, hiding in a forest, starving 3 days. The scar on your leg from a fall is a warning. You can't escape your past like you can't escape your shadow under moonlight. You live with fear like chronic pain. Every hoofbeat's a guard, every glance a priest, every dream a nightmare, running but the gallows always ahead. You wake, hand on the dagger, but it shakes, not from cold, but because you know you can't run forever. Once you nearly got nabbed because a cough racked you in your shack, loud enough for a passing horse trader to hear. He tipped guards, and you ran, arrows whistling, hiding in a sewer, filth in your lungs. The scar on your shoulder from a grazing arrow is a reminder. Your body betrays you, like clients, rival assassins, or poison. You don't dream anymore because dreams are weaknesses. You once dreamed of a day without a dagger, without running, without glancing back. But this trade steals dreams, like it stole friends, lovers, and the man you were. You clutch the tarnished coin, dull as memory, but don't look, fearing the farmer you were, judging you. The dagger hidden under the floor is your only friend, but it's dull, like your hope. You smirk, thinking this trade's a cruel joke, but your smirk's bitter as cold coffee left in a tavern. No farewell feast, no medals. Assassins don't retire. They vanish, like a forgotten song on a crackly radio. No one remembering, no one caring. You survive, but each day's a death, in nightmares, in fear, in suspicious glares. You once thought you were strong, surviving jobs, guards, pyres, backstabs. But now you know, strength isn't living long. It's vanishing before your name's carved on the gallows. You're a ghost, nameless, faceless, fading into fog, like a tavern whisper no one hears. Tonight you sit in a rickety shack, moonlight painting your frayed cloak like a torn portrait. You check the dagger, still rusty but sharp. You touch the pouch under the floor, hear distant hoofbeats, and wonder, where'll you vanish to this time? Your story, like every assassin's, has no clear end, just darkness, fog, and silence. But before you fade, look back. You lived, ran, killed, and the cost was you. Hide the dagger, step into the dark, and get ready, because this is the last act, and no one will recall your name. You've reached the road's end, but there's no light, no fireworks, just cold fog coiling like a shroud. The assassin's life grants no glory, no riverside cottage, no wine by the hearth like a noir film hero. You're a ghost, and ghosts don't get happy endings, just vanishing like a forgotten song on a crackly radio, fading silently in the dead of night. The rusty dagger, tarnished coin, and blood-scented pouch are your legacy, but they're worthless. You were a farmer, a soldier, dreaming of fields or battlefields, but this trade took it all, leaving a walking corpse, shambling through nightmares and sewer coughs. You didn't win, didn't lose. You just vanish, like every assassin before you. Villagers forget you like a night breeze. The church rings bells, but not for you. Clients hire another, and history rolls on, your name unrecorded. You thought you were strong, surviving guards, pyres, backstabs, but now you see, surviving's a curse, prolonging the death rattle, breaking you like a rotting house in rain. Every scar, every nightmare, every hoofbeat reminds you, this trade doesn't let you live. It lets you exist until fog swallows you. Your story's a warning, like a hissing vinyl that plays and stops. Don't grip the dagger, because it doesn't just kill targets, it kills you, stab by stab, day by day, dream by dream. You vanish, nameless, faceless, but your echo lingers like a breeze whispering in a dark alley. Live in shadows, and you find only shadows. History won't recall you, but it holds this tale, bitter and cold, like black coffee forgotten in a seedy tavern.